of Senator Thune and others of us to be heard so that we have an honest debate, an honest choice, and then we accept the results. And, Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor and I believe suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Mr. President.
The senator from California is recognized.
Mr. President, I would like to just briefly respond.
The senator is notified that we're in a quorum call.
I ask the quorum call be issued.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I'd ask that I could briefly respond to the senator's comments. Senator Coates and I work together on intelligence. I have great respect for him. I understand the regional issues involved in this, so I understand your thinking. My thinking is that we get a strong vote on this today. This is simply a cloture vote. We have 60 votes. We have some time to see if we can work something out. Now, one thing I've learned in this whole line of pursuit is if you give your word, keep it. It's the only thing you have really is your integrity. And I give you my word that we will continue to try with the participants to see if we can bring both sides together. I know this is a long journey, and I know we'll be blue-slipped, and we've got to come back, and we'll have to have a bill that we can put a tax matter on, and that's for a later day. I think we're into this, and so many people want kind of a clean vote that if we have that, you know, I'm prepared to give you my word to continue to try to discuss this. You know, my own view on these things is to do the very best you can, try to reach a compromise when issues are really like this, and march on to the next thing. And this has become far harder than I anticipated. And I think, you know, we are relatively close to a solution, to a compromise. Now, whether Senator Coburn will accept it or not, I don't know. But I know these discussions are going on, and all I can do is pledge you my best effort to try to get to something that satisfies everybody. I understand if you come from a large ethanol-producing state, I understand what this means. On the other hand, I also understand that this is going to be the first of many coming down the line, that we've got to change the way we do business, that if we're going to carry out the mandate of a prudent government, we've got to make a lot of changes, and none of it's going to be easy. So we might as well get used to it now. But for whatever it's worth, you have my word that I will continue to try.
Well, Mr. President, the senator would yield.
Senator from Indiana.
I accept that fully. Having had the opportunity to work with Senator Feinstein on the Intelligence Committee, I don't hesitate for a second to accept her word and know that she will keep it. It's been a pleasure to work with her on that committee. We spend many hours behind closed doors discussing issues of great importance to this country, and she's provided great leadership in that effort. So I will look forward to working with the senator from California, accept fully her offer. Hopefully we can find a good solution to this issue, and I couldn't agree with you more, Senator Feinstein, that this is the first of many things, that tough decisions that we're going to have to make. And if we're not flexible in making these decisions at this time of clear fiscal distress, we're going to be judged very harshly by the markets and by our constituents. They know we're spending too much. They know we may need to make decisions, that some of which will be painful. Trying to do this in a way that it doesn't become draconian, and I appreciate the words of the senator from California in terms of the willingness to sit down together and work this through. And as you said, this will be the first of many, many difficult days ahead. But what is encouraging and ought to be encouraging to the American people is that there is a bipartisan commitment. First of all, a bipartisan understanding of the plight that we're in. We wish we weren't here, but we are. And a bipartisan understanding, growing bipartisan understanding, that working together is the only solution to this. Because if it becomes stalemate, we're doing a great disservice to the future prosperity of this country and its impact on future generations, including our current generation and the many, many people who are out of work and need an economic recovery to take place sooner rather than later. So I thank the Senator for her comments and look forward to working with her along with others in the first of probably many difficult but important and necessary discussions. Senator, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka?
The senator from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I have 8 unanimous consent requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have been approved by the majority and minority leaders. I ask unanimous consent that these requests be agreed to and these requests be printed in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I rise in support of the Feinstein Amendment that would eliminate, at long last, the subsidies for ethanol, corn-based ethanol, in America. And I would ask my colleagues, in a little while we're going to have a chance to vote on this, and I would ask them to support the Feinstein Amendment. I thank the leader for making time on the calendar so that we can vote on this issue, and I hope that the majority will support this. I know we have a 60-vote threshold, and I would hope that we would be able to express at long last that it's time to eliminate this subsidy. This is an issue that has brought together an unusual and a broad-based support among those who are seeking to eliminate this subsidy. We have taxpayer advocates who understand that this is a subsidy that taxpayers should not be underwriting. We have hunger and development organizations which recognize that the impact on ethanol on the corn crop is affecting the affordability of food, not only here, but it's having a major impact around our entire country. We have agricultural groups, including the Maryland poultry growers and integrators, who support the repeal of the subsidy for ethanol. That's because the poultry industry understands the impact that the ethanol subsidies are having on the poultry industry, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have free market groups who say, look, let the market work. There's no need here for us to interfere with the free market. We have religious organizations. We have environmental groups, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. That although ethanol was originally, the subsidies was originally put on, we thought for a positive environmental impact, it's having just the reverse impact because of the amount of energy that's necessary to produce ethanol has all the good that we thought was being done has really have been lost. And then we have those that are budget hawks. They're saying, look, you're being asked to do a lot of things to bring the budget into balance, a lot of hard decisions. Why don't we at least eliminate these unnecessary subsidies in an interest to bring our budget more into balance? The wide range of interest groups supporting this issue has fostered wide bipartisan support for repealing this credit for ethanol. So, Mr. President, we have an opportunity here, I think, to bring together a lot of different groups to really work across party line, to start the process to bring our agricultural programs into better balance, to have a better energy policy, to help create jobs, and also to deal with our budget deficit. According to the GAO, this credit is, and I'm quote, is a wasteful and duplicative, end quote, federally funded support program for an industry that already enjoys mandated market share under the renewable fuel standards. Since 2006, the renewable fuel standards has required oil companies to blend increasing amounts of ethanol into our gasoline. So when we repeal this credit, when we repeal this break that the ethanol industry receives, it will not impact on the market from the point of view of the amount of ethanol that will be available. Especially during times of fiscal constraint, it simply does not make sense to continue giving billions of dollars to a robust and thriving industry in which American consumers see little benefit from. Mr. President, we have a huge budget deficit. You understand that? I understand that. The people of Ohio, the people of Maryland understand that. We need to look at ways that we can bring the budget deficit down. Repealing unnecessary subsidies should clearly be at the top of our list. With more than 40% of America's corn crop going into fuel, the increased demands have made feed extraordinarily expensive. Let me share with you what I've heard from my poultry farmers on the eastern shore of Maryland. The poultry industry is an important part of the economic fiber of the eastern shore of Maryland. It translates into jobs for people who live on the eastern shore of Maryland, the poultry industry, extremely important. Yet the single largest cost factor for the poultry industry is the corn feed that goes into producing the poultry, reaching the chickens. With such a high cost factor, the arbitrary demand factor for corn as a result of ethanol has raised the price of the cost of producing poultry in my state, costing us jobs. The elimination of this subsidy will help us maintain and expand jobs in the state of Maryland and around the region. While corn-based ethanol may be a homegrown fuel, it is an it has an extreme energy and water resource intense process to produce. So where we thought we were producing an energy source that would be favorable to our nation, it takes so much energy to produce the ethanol. At the end of the day, we've used imported energy to produce our own homegrown energy source, and we don't benefit from a point of view of having energy independence here in America. The energy savings are minimal when you take into consideration how much energy it takes to produce ethanol. And not to mention that ethanol burns less efficiently in our engines than regular fuel, and the higher concentration. That means fewer miles per gallon. And result, we use more energy when we were trying to save energy. It doesn't make sense over the long term. A tax break from ethanol is a gift to the oil companies and grain producers, a gift that actually harms American consumers and our environment. Corn is a stable food commodity that is found in millions of American products, from food additives to livestock feed. More than 1/3 of our nation's corn is now going into the production of ethanol. So, Mr. President, this is causing just a problem in our food stock, the amount of corn that goes into ethanol in America. It's time that we eliminate this arbitrary subsidy that's causing a disruption, making it more difficult for people to afford their basic products. The increased demand for corn is raising the price of everything from eggs to milk to soft drinks to chicken to breakfast cereals, and it's the American consumer that's being hit the hardest with these higher food prices. Using corn to make ethanol also harms our environment. Once corn is harvested, it is a costly and energy-intense process to turn it into ethanol fuel fit for commercial sale. We need to develop sustainable, renewable biofuels, those that are not derived from food-based commodities such as corn, to make our nation less dependent on foreign energy sources. While I support developing the next generation of algae or cellulosic biofuels, I don't support providing billions of dollars for a fuel product that is driving up the cost of food, harming our environment, and doing little to reduce our consumption of foreign oil. It's time that we stop subsidizing big oil to produce a fuel that we could produce with or without an additional $6 billion a year of subsidies. So, Mr. President, I hope my colleagues will support the Feinstein Amendment that would eliminate this subsidy, so that we can eliminate this unnecessary subsidy, help make food more affordable for the people of our nation, and help us develop an energy policy that really does make sense for America, that will help our security and help our economy. So for all those reasons, I will support the Feinstein Amendment, urge my colleagues to do so, and would suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
The senator from Tennessee is recognized.
Are we in quorum call at President?
Yes, we are.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to vitiate the quorum call.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak today on behalf of the Coburn-Feinstein Amendment that we'll be voting on later. Mr. President, it's rare that people in this country that are receiving a tax credit tell us, as servants of the United States, that they don't want the tax credit that they're receiving. I think that most people in this room are aware that we're spending about $6 billion a year on something called a blender's tax credit. It's my understanding the blenders who receive this tax credit have shared with us that this is a waste of money and they'd like for this to end. And so we have an amendment today, especially fortunate time for us at a time when we're having tremendous fiscal issues in this country. We have an amendment before us today to do away with this tax credit, which seems to me to be only something of common sense. I think most people in America know that in Congress years ago, we passed a mandate that requires a certain amount of ethanol to be used in our country. And so this mandate already is in place. This mandate forces the use of certain numbers of gallons of ethanol in this country. But on top of that, our country is now paying 45 cents for every gallon that's blended. And those people who receive this have told us that this is unnecessary, that it's a waste of taxpayer money, and that they do not want it. And so the Coburn-Feinstein Amendment does away with this. It also does away with a tariff where importers who import ethanol into our country now pay a tariff which actually raises the price of ethanol. It actually raises what people are now paying at the pump because they have to pay a tariff to import this into our country. It does away with that tariff. So, Mr. President, this is a very common sense amendment. I certainly thank Senator Coburn and Senator Feinstein for offering this amendment at a time when our country is in such financial straits. It's rare that we have something like this, again, that those people who actually receive this credit would like to do away with. I know it's been argued, Mr. President, that at the end of this last year, we all voted for certain tax issues. That's an interesting argument, except that what happens at the end of the year, we do these in mass, and there are minor provisions within this package that we have no opportunity to take out. And so here this massive group of tax credits come to us. We have to vote up or down on a package of them that's huge, that has all kinds of tax provisions in it. And so there are some people in this room that have said, well, or in this body that have said, well, but we just voted this in place. Well, we voted a package in place, but many of us for years have argued that this tax credit is redundant. We've argued that it is a waste of taxpayer money. We've argued that with the mandate in place, there's absolutely no need for this. And the tariff that goes along with this, where we pay for imported ethanol, we pay more for that because of this tariff, is absolutely a burden to American consumers and certainly, again, to taxpayers. So, Mr. President, I thank the senators for offering this amendment. I look forward to supporting this amendment. This is one of those amendments, sometimes we vote on things down here that candidly are rather mundane. This is one of those amendments that I not only support, I support with tremendous enthusiasm and energy, and I urge all those in the United States Senate to support this very common sense amendment that does something that is responsible for consumers in this country, that does something that is responsible for taxpayers in this country, and obviously will make our country stronger if it passes. I have a sense it may. I urge those on the floor to please consider it if they're now in middle ground and haven't made a decision. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Earlier in the week, and I won't spend a great deal of time today. Thanks to the Majority Leader, we're going to have 2 votes this afternoon on items that I think are representative of critical problems in our country. The first is a vote on an amendment by Senator Feinstein and myself that eliminates payments to the largest refining and oil companies in this country to blend ethanol, which they have honestly admitted and sent us a letter and said they don't want. The second is on whether or not we'll subsidize with federal tax dollars additional pumps to use ethanol. The reason the votes are important is because the way we get out of trouble as a nation is a couple of $1 billion at a time. We have a federal mandate that says X amount of fuel has to be blended with ethanol every year. And that's going to rise up to 22 billion gallons in 2015. So there's no reason for us to pay somebody to blend it when they already have to, and we've seen the shift in the industry from small entities to the very large. When this program started, it was about less than $1 billion in cost. It's now going to be, on an annualized basis, around $6 billion. And when we're running a $1.6 trillion deficit, we need every penny we can get. And so I'm thankful that this has been brought up. But it begs the larger question. Actually, there's 2. One is, can we trust markets, real markets, to work more effectively than Washington mandating and dictating policies? And throughout our history, if you look at it in total, no government can ever do any allocation of scarce resources as well as a market can. The markets aren't perfect, there's no question. They make mistakes, they cause occasional shortages, but overall, in the long run, markets work much better than a bureaucratic Soviet-style mandate of what we'll do and what price we'll pay for it. The second question that it begs is, what is our country's energy policy? We send $250 billion a year outside of this country for oil and gas liquids and natural gas. That's $250 billion that we could invest here and pay for our own resources. We are the only nation in the world where our resources are owned by the citizens and our own government limits our ability to utilize them. CRS just finished a study that shows that the oil and gas reserves in the United States are greater than that of Saudi Arabia, China, and Canada combined. So the question is why aren't we using ours rather than sending money overseas and undermining our own economy and not creating jobs. The projections are is if we would truly utilize our resources, we could create close to 190,000 jobs a year in the exploration and energy business. Without subsidies, without tax credits, that's what would be the result. And when oil's at near $100 a barrel, and we continue to send the money out of the country instead of go after our own resources, which are plentiful, we have to ask the question, what are we doing? Final point I'll make is when you go and buy ethanol-blended gasoline, and you look at the price and you see, well, here's regular gasoline that has no ethanol in it, and here's ethanol-blended gasoline that's about 20 or 25 cents cheaper. It's important the American people understand that you need to add $1.72 to that to get the real price you're paying for that blended gasoline. Because that's what your government has put in to the pipeline in the way of loans, grants, subsidies, blenders credits, and taxes on imported ethanol. So even though it looks cheaper, it's not. It's about $1.40 more when you look at all the costs that have been taken from you as a taxpayer, put into the pipeline, and given to the special interests in terms of what we'll have and where we'll have it and when we'll have it. I support ethanol as an alternative fuel, especially now that it has 7.5% of our market. But the best way for ethanol to survive is for it to stand on its own 2 feet without subsidies, without us spending dollars that we don't have to get something that we're going to get anyway. And so I'm extremely pleased with my discussions with Senator Reid, and I'm very thankful for Senator Cardin as well as Senator Feinstein. Senator Feinstein's been working on this for a long time. She opposed this when it started, and she recognizes that what we've actually done is really not help ourselves that much. We have markedly increased the cost of food. We can say it isn't, but 40% of the corn crop this last year went for ethanol, and corn's at historic highs. And when you look at a poultry producer or a beef producer or a pork producer or lamb producer or turkey producer or milk producer or egg producer, what they have been hit with is their largest cost has doubled because of this policy. Grains, given our wonderful farm community and their ability to produce it, is extremely high. And our farmers are extremely efficient. So this policy isn't going to affect farm prices significantly right now, but hopefully in the future it will bring them down to a more moderate level. You know, 2.5 years ago, corn was at $3 a bushel, and most corn farmers made money on that. It's now above $7, even though their input costs have risen somewhat with the increased oil prices. The farms in our country that raise grains have never been in better shape if they can get a crop, and I know we have areas in the country where that hadn't happened. So I think overall we're starting to address some of the misdirected capital formation in this country by backing off on government picking of winners and losers. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak on it, and I would yield the floor. I see the senator from Iowa is here.
Hi, Madam President.
The senator from Iowa.
Madam President, first I ask unanimous consent that Katie Jones, Caitlin Lawrence, and Jean Fleming of my staff be granted for privileges for the duration of today's session.
Without objection.
Madam President, I'd like to ask, since he was kind enough to yield to me, I'd like to ask consent that on the completion of my remarks that the senator from Ohio, Senator Brown, be recognized for his statement.
Without objection.
Thank you. Madam President, I strongly oppose both the amendment offered by Senators Feinstein and Coburn and the one that is offered by Senator McCain that we'll be voting on here in a couple of hours. My message today is very simple. This assault on America's ethanol industry is both misguided and undeserved. This is truly a homegrown industry built on the investment and labor of many thousands of Americans, providing a product that helps us with one of our most pressing national issues, our dependency on imported oil. Yet here we are debating amendments that I think clearly tell the industry you aren't important, you don't matter, and you don't have the support of the American people. Well, I think that is the wrong, misguided message to be sending. And I'll tell you why. We've been struggling with our dependency on oil for almost 40 years. One of our strategies over that period of time has been to develop and commercialize biofuels. I'm proud to have been, in the beginning, and continue to be a strong advocate for renewable biofuels produced from domestic feedstocks. We started working on this, as I said, over 30 years ago. It's been a long campaign, but it's been a remarkably successful campaign when you think about it. It took about 20 years for ethanol to get to the point of contributing just a few percent of our gasoline supply. In the past 10 years, biofuels, and particularly ethanol, have gotten to the point they now displace about 10% of our fuel supply. Think about that. 10% of our liquid fuel supply, used basically for transportation, is displaced by biofuels. I think that's a remarkable achievement. No other alternative supply comes close. In fact, no alternative supply provides even 1% of our domestic fuel. Let me repeat that. No other alternative to ethanol comes even close to displacing 1% of imported oil. And yet, ethanol is displacing 10% today. Again, a remarkable achievement. Now, our oil dependency problem is still with it. We still depend on it from many nations that are unstable or unfriendly to us. It's getting worse. You know, oil imports are costing us, on average, over the last few years, about $100 per barrel. I know many of my colleagues share my strong concern about oil imports and the need to find alternatives. Well, that's why we passed new CAFE standards in the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. That's why we adopted a mandate for renewable biofuels in that same bill, a mandate. Going back further, that's why we began providing tax incentives for biofuels production already in the 1970s. That's why we promoted alternative fuels in the 1991 energy bill. That's why many of us today are promoting hybrid and electric vehicles. And that's why we need to continue to support the production of ethanol and other domestic biofuels. Just as increasing efficiency standards have been a big success in reducing demand, promoting biofuels has been by far our biggest success on the supply side. They've gone from a few percent at the turn of the century to about, as I said, 10% today. Moreover, looking ahead, the most likely supply-side alternative to displace the next 10% of our gasoline demand is biofuels. Again, we recognized this fact in 2007 when we adopted the Renewable Fuel Standard 2 that requires 36 billion gallons of biofuels by 2022. 36 billion gallons of biofuels by 2022. Now, again, we should pay attention to the options. Let's promote alternatives such as electric vehicles. I'm all for that. But we should also make sure that since we're going to be using liquid fuels for most of our transportation fleet in the next 10, 20 years and beyond, well, we have to look to biofuels. It's renewable, and clean. So our biofuels challenge isn't production, or it really isn't even economics. Our challenge is adapting our transportation markets, our fuel markets, to be able to utilize the biofuels. Now, again, as I said, most of our biofuels today are in the form of ethanol. It will continue to be our principal biofuel for many years to come. However, today, we can only displace 10% of our gasoline, as I've said, in the form of a 10% blend of ethanol. It's called E10. You go to your gas stations, and my friend from Oklahoma is referring to the ethanol blends. That's what we have today. It's limited, basically, most of it to E10. Now, Again, we need to be able to use higher blends, 15%, 20%, as high as 85% of ethanol. In fact, in my state and in our neighboring state to the north, Minnesota, we have many pumps that are what they call E85. 85% of the fuel that comes out of it is ethanol, and only 15% is gasoline. And quite frankly, the flexible fuel cars run just fine on that 85% blend. The problem is we need more blender pumps at our filling stations. We don't have them, but we need them. We have them in a few states, but very few states have blender pumps. Now, we need to pass a bill like S-187, the Biofuels Market Expansion Act, which I introduced in January. Now, again, I remember a few years ago that Senator Lugar and I had a meeting in the Ag Committee room, and we had the oil companies in, the major oil companies in, to ask them why they didn't put more blender pumps in their fuel stations. And their answer was very clear and very logical. They said, well, why would we take up valuable space in our filling stations for a blender pump when there are few and almost no flexible fuel cars out there that could use it? Point well taken. So after that, we called in the automobile companies. I know we had Chrysler, we had Ford, GM, Honda, I believe, was there. And we asked them, why don't you make more flexible fuel cars? And the response from their viewpoint was very logical. Why should we build more flexible fuel cars when there aren't any blender pumps out there? Point well taken. So here you have chicken and egg. Gasoline, the oil companies say, well, we don't want to put in blender pumps, no flex fuel cars. Detroit says we don't want to build flex fuel cars because there are no blender pumps. I would point out that in Brazil, almost every car built by Ford, every car built by GM, every car built by Honda or Toyota built in Brazil, every single one basically is flexible fuel. It could burn anything from 10% ethanol to 20% to 50% to 85%, actually in Brazil to 100% of ethanol. That's the direction we need to go here. Now, with these two amendments today, we find ourselves going in exactly the wrong direction. The Feinstein-Coburn Amendment tells the ethanol industry it no longer has the support of Congress. And the McCain Amendment then would block one of the most critical things we need to do, and that is the installation of flexible fuel pumps. And again, I have said many times that we can reform our biofuels policy. I'm more than willing to give up the ethanol tax credit. I've said that before here on the floor. We can give up the ethanol tax credit if the ethanol industry has access to the market. But the McCain Amendment, you take the two amendments together, one pulls the rug out from underneath the ethanol industry in terms of its tax credits. I'm saying, okay, fine. That's fine. We can do that if we have access. Then the McCain Amendment comes along and says, you can't use any of the funds that we put in the agricultural bill, in the last ag bill that had tremendous bipartisan support, I might add. Can't use any of that for blender pumps at fuel stations. So here we have it. We're going to tell the ethanol industry you can't get the tax credits, and guess what? We're going to keep you from getting access to the marketplace. Well, that's what we need is market access for ethanol. I mean, you go to Exxon and Mobil and Shell and all those gas stations, you think they want to put in an ethanol pump? Well, they're okay with 10%. They'll do the 10% now. But they need to have to put in those blender pumps. And the automobile companies need to produce cars that are flexible fuel. They do a few of them now, but every car built ought to be flexible fuel. So that, again, people can choose. As I've said, ethanol can stand on its own 2 feet now if people have the right and the freedom and the ability to use it. But if you're up against monopolistic kinds of filling stations that won't permit a blender pump to be put in there, then ethanol has no marketplace. We also need to build a dedicated pipeline for ethanol. You know, the oil companies, gas companies, they have their own pipelines. They won't put any ethanol through those pipelines. Well, they say it's water and all that, but let's face it, they won't put any ethanol through their pipelines. Well, we can build, and the private sector, not the government, the private sector can build and is willing to build and is ready to build a dedicated pipeline from the Midwest to the East Coast. A couple of companies have already secured most of the right-of-way. They're ready to go. All they need is one simple thing, a loan guarantee. Not money, just a simple loan guarantee so that they know that they can build the pipeline and that the ethanol industry can use it and get the fuel to the East Coast where the majority of our population is right now and where we have a dearth. We don't have enough ethanol in our major population centers. So again, we need to redouble our national commitment to expanding the use of renewable energy and weaning ourselves from imported oil. But we're not going to do it with these two amendments today. You know, the ethanol industry says they just want the marketplace to be able to accept it and let them stand there on their own 2 feet. They can do that. That's more important than the tax subsidies. I might also add, I remember debating this issue with the then senator from Texas, Senator Graham. We had a lot of debates on the Senate floor and back in the 80s or 90s, I guess, on this issue. And I pointed out at that time that the ethanol industry, if you talk about the tax credits and support from the government that the ethanol industry has gotten, pales in comparison to the dozens of years of tax write-offs and benefits we've given the oil companies in America, going clear back to about 1920. You think about all of the tax benefits we've given the oil companies in America, to drill, to produce, to ship, to pipe, to refine, to market. Add it all up. Add it all up, and ethanol is just a small, small part of that. But the oil companies have never given up. Have never given up on their assault, on ethanol and on biofuels. The Feinstein-Coburn Amendment is precipitous. Again, as I said, I'm more than willing, and hopefully before the end of the year. Now, the ethanol tax credits are going to expire at the end of this year. Hopefully, before the end of the year, we will reach some agreement, work out something where we have more access to the marketplace. And then we can do away with the tax credits. But we should not take an action that would slash the value of the ethanol industry's primary product by nearly 20% overnight. Think about it this way. We have a one-year extension of the ethanol tax credits. It goes to the end of this year. We did that. The Congress did that. We said that to the industry. Investors have come in. Modifications to plants have been built. Plants had been built. And yet, in the middle of the year, we're going to say, no, we're going to take it away. To all my friends over there that keep talking about the private sector and how we need the private sector, we don't need the government. You're going to pull the rug out from underneath the private sector on a guarantee that we gave them earlier this year. No industry could survive a shock like that. No industry could survive that. And it's wrong. It's just wrong to do that at this point in time. Well, Madam President, we all know one thing. These votes this afternoon, okay, people can come down here and vote against ethanol, vote against the tax credits for the ethanol industry, vote to cut off marketplace access to the ethanol, But nothing's going to happen. The House will blue slip it, and then we'll be on to doing what really needs to be done in a logical way, and that is to reduce the tax credits for ethanol, which I'm all in favor of doing, if in fact, we then can promote market access. Senator Lugar and I, in the past, had worked on a bill together. I've reintroduced it basically this year that would do three things. It would mandate a certain proportion of blender pumps be installed at the large gasoline stations, those that are owned by the major oil companies. It would provide tax credits to the small mom-and-pop stations that would put in a blender pump in their station, the independents. And third, it would mandate a gradual increase over the next few years of the number of cars produced in America, sold in America, that are flexible fuel. Now, if we do all those things, ethanol will stand on its own 2 feet. I want to just say one last thing before I yield the floor to the Senator from Ohio, I guess, and that is this. Right now, people have made much of the fact that there's $5 billion of tax credits this year going to the ethanol industry. I understand that. However, because of the lower price of ethanol, because we're blending 10% ethanol into gasoline, all of the people in America today are paying less for their gasoline than they otherwise would if we didn't have ethanol. So if you take that into account, the fact that the consumers of America, when they fill up their gas tank, are paying less than they would if they didn't have ethanol, that more than offsets the $5 billion that we have put into the tax credits for ethanol support. So yes, we have supported the ethanol industry with $5 billion. I dare say we've gotten back probably twice as much as that in savings at the gas pump for the consumers of America. Now, perhaps that's what the oil companies are mad about. Maybe they'd like to have that money for themselves. I suppose that's probably true. I understand that. But I think our obligation to the consumers of America and to the private sector, who is operating on a guarantee that we gave them, that we would have these tax credits at least till the end of this year. And I think on an implicit guarantee that we gave that we would make sure that there would be a marketplace that would be open and accessible for biofuels. So that's what we need to do, is to reduce the tax credits, but open up the marketplace for ethanol in blender pumps and in flexible fuel cars. But that's not before us today. That's not what's before us today. But we will continue to work together, again, as I said, towards the end of this year, to make a reasonable, smooth transition from the tax credits to access to the marketplace. And I will take the floor again and again the remainder of this year and on. I'm not doing it today, but I will show the amount of tax credits, not credits, the amount of tax benefits the oil companies have gotten over the last 80 years. Add that up and compare it to what the ethanol industry has gotten over the last about 30 years. And you will see that the oil companies have gotten a lot more than what ethanol has ever received from the government. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
The senator from Arizona.